Hi everybody, this is the video for 10.7b. Okay, this is the second part of section 10.7. If you haven't done 10.7a yet, please go back and do that first, or this is not going to make a lot of sense. So this will be the last video for chapter 10, yay, and so enjoy. So in section 10.1, we learned about circles. 10.2, we learned about arcs. 10.3, we learned about chords. And 10.4, we learned about inscribed angles and intercepted arcs. And in 10.7a, we did a lot of work with circles and inscribed angles and all those sorts of things. So today, we're just going to take it a teeny bit further. Okay. And we're going to look at the general form of the equation, for circles. So in the last section, I showed you this form of the circle, this form of the equation for the circle. And it turns out this is the equation for a very specific circle. But the more general form of the equation is this right here. And x and y are the variables. Okay, so h is the x-coordinate of the center. So if I look on this circle here, the x-coordinate of this center is 2. And so we're going to call that h. Okay, k is the y-coordinate of the center, and in this example, the y-coordinate of the center is -1, and so that's k. And r just remains good old r. And so the general form of the equation of the circle is x minus the x-coordinate of the center squared plus y minus the y-coordinate of the center squared is equal to the r squared. So you can see that what this takes care of is circles that are not on the origin, where the center is not on the origin. So if the center was on the origin, then h and k would both be equal to 0, and you'd have this equation. X squared plus y squared equals r squared. Okay, but sometimes circles are centered on the origin, and sometimes they're not. And so this is where this general form of the equation comes in. So in the last section, we learned how to do 3 types of problems. In this section, we're going to learn how to do a 4th and final type. Okay, for this chapter. Okay. Now, we already did our compass work together, so we're going to jump directly to how to decipher the equation of a circle. So remember, whenever we want to graph a circle, we want to find the center. Oops. We want to find the center, and we want to find the radius. And if we have those 2 things, then we can graph any circle. Okay, so let's look at this first equation. So we have x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Okay, so right off the bat, easy peasy. If r squared is equal to 9, r is equal to 3, sorry. So radius is equal to 3. Okay, now let's look at our center. So our center, okay, remember the equation is x minus h, so we have x minus 4, so h is equal to 4. And that's the x-coordinate of the center. Okay, and remember our equation is y minus k, so y minus 3, and k must equal 3. So here is our center, 4, 3. So we could go plot our center, 4, 3, and use our compass to trace out a circle that was 3 units away from the center. Okay, very easy. Now, the potential for confusion here is in those signs, the two minus signs, because let's look what happens here. So we have x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Okay, right off the bat, our radius is going to be equal to 4, because the square root of 16 is 4. Okay, but let's look at these numbers. So h, okay, notice the equation has a plus here. So if I'm subtracting, okay, sorry about that break, but I had a pot boiling over on the stove. Okay, so here we are. Here's our plus here. Okay, and yet our formula calls for a minus. So how do we get a minus? Okay, so obviously, remember, a plus and a minus will give you a minus. Okay, so then h has to be equal to minus 2. Minus 2. Okay, and our k, okay, the formula calls for minus, and sure enough, this is a minus, so our k is just plain old 2. And our center is at negative 2, 2. Okay? So, just remember, when there's a plus in here, that means that the h or the k, okay, there could be a plus over here, over the y parentheses also, the h or the k has got to be negative, okay? And it's just something that you're going to have to memorize. So let's look at another case that you might see, and I'm going to change colors. So here is our general formula. Minus k squared equals r squared. Okay, obviously r is equal to 5. Okay, but here instead of having x minus h, we just have x squared all by himself. So what does that mean? So what could we do to h to turn this expression into just x squared? Well, let's try making h equal 0. So if I turn h into 0 and I subtract it from x, all I have is x. And I square the x and I come up with x squared. So we know when the variable, either x or y, is all by himself, that the h or the k has to be 0. So let's look at our k. Okay, we have a minus sign in the middle, so everything's cool, and our k has to be equal to 4. So our center is at 0, 4. Okay? So please, I hope you took notes on this so you can refer to it as we go through and you do your homework and you're given different combinations of negative and positive and x squared or y squared by himself, la-da-da, and you'll be able to solve those problems because you will have your notes. Okay, so let's do some problems. Okay, oops, I'm not going to do that. We already did that in class. I just did that. Okay, so this is the fourth type of problem. You're given an equation, and then you are asked to graph it. And remember, if it has this form, this x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared, it's going to be a circle. So this is going to be a circle. Now, let's try to figure out what our r is. So our r squared is 4, so our r is equal to 2. Okay. And now let's figure out our center. So we have a plus here, so we know that our h has to be -3. And we have a plus here also, so our k has to be -1. So this is our center. So we're going to graph it. We're going to go over to 3, -3, and then down 1, and this is going to be our center. Okay, and our radius is going to be equal to 2. So remember, the radius 2 is not a coordinate. It is the distance from the center. So because I can't use a compass on this, I'm going to help myself here, and I'm going to draw some radii. Okay, they're all, the length is 2. And now I can draw my circle. It's hard drawing a circle from scratch. This is why you are always going to use your compass. Okay, get rid of this guy, he's pretty bad. Make him a little bit better. There. Okay, so there's our circle. Now, let's look at the next one. So I have a plus in the middle, so that means my h is going to be negative, and it's a -2. And in this case, the operation in the middle is a negative, and so my k is going to be 4. There's my center. And the square root of 1 is 1. Okay. So when I graph, I'm going to go over to -2. And I'm going to go up 4 because it's positive. And there's my center. And in this case, my radius is only 1. So I'm going to put in some radii that are 1 unit. You don't know if these are inches or centimeters or feet or acres or God knows what, okay? So you just know that they're 1 unit. Okay, and now I'm going to draw my circle. Okay? So that's what that guy looks like. Okay, let's continue on. Do 2 more. Okay, here we have x squared all by himself and y squared all by himself. So if you remember from the notes 2 pages ago, okay, the only way to make this happen, okay, if you have x, I guess I have more pages. Sorry. Okay, so I have, okay. So remember I have x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So our r is the square root of 16, so r is equal to 4. Okay, so how can we make x minus h squared look like x squared? You have to make h equal to 0. So we know our center. Okay, we know our h is going to be 0. Okay, in this case, we have a similar situation. How do you make y minus k squared equal to y squared? You make k equals 0. So there's our center. Our center is at the origin. Okay, our radius is equal to 4. So I'm going to count 4, -4, 4, 4. Remember, we're looking at the lengths here. So I can go ahead and draw my circle. It'll look more like a football. Yours, of course, will look like a circle because you will use a compass. Don't take a quiz or a test and not use a compass. You have to use one. Okay, it's not optional. So the final problem. Here I have my x minus 4. So if there's a minus in the middle, that means my h is positive. So my h is going to be equal to 4. And here, y squared is all by himself. So my k has to be equal to 0. And my radius is equal to the square root of 1, which is 1. So my center is at 4, 0. Okay, 2, 4. My radius is 1, so I'm going to count 1 away here. And I'm going to draw my circle. Okay, and that's it. So, but be careful. You notice here, okay, all these little lines are 1, equal to 1. Okay, particularly when you start working with bigger numbers, sometimes the people who draw these graphs will make these numbers so that each little teeny square is equal to maybe 5 or 10, whatever. And so you have to adjust your circle accordingly. So you just have to be aware of that. Okay. This is the end of the examples. Hopefully you'll be able to take it from there and finish up the homework on 10.7b. And once you finish that, you are ready to go on to the chapter review for chapter 10. And then take the test on chapter 10, and then you'll be done with chapter 10. Okay, so again, if you have any questions, let me know. And good luck on the homework.